All right. Shelley Reed. Here. Manny Becerra for
Here.
Alex Velto.
Here.
Harris Armstrong.
Here.
Francine Donchik.
Here.
Marilyn Kramer.
Here.
Kate Nelson.
Here.
Carl Nieberlein.
Here.
Pat Phillips.
Here.
And Carrie Rohrmeyer.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Commissioner Donchik, motion to approve.
Commissioner Kramer, seconds.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And we're going to open up our first public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We have none.
We have none. I will close public comment and go to approval of the minutes. Can we get a motion?
Sorry, just a quick disclosure. I was not attending that meeting, so I'll be abstaining.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kramer, I move to approve the minutes of the February 22nd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Commissioner Becerra, second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any discussion?
Commissioner Donchik, I'll abstain since I was not in attendance.
Okay, and just for the record, you do not have to
I
abstain
know.
even though you weren't at the meeting. But we'll go ahead and take that and go with the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving along to business of the day. Item A, Director Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Item A is for possible action. It's a public hearing. Washoe County Master Plan Amendment, Conformance Review, and also potentially a regional plan amendment for the Thompson Family Trust. Just as sort of a preemptive reminder, we'll be looking for potentially two motions on this item. And we have Regional Planner Chris Tolley to take us through the item.
There we go. Good evening, Regional Planning Commissioners. Chris Tolley, Team RPA. This item is a conformance review and regional plan amendment as introduced by Director Smith for the Thompson Family Trust Amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan. And those case numbers are CR 24-003 and RPA 24-001. And then before continuing, and just a little aside, before continuing with the presentation, I want to say a little thanks to both Washoe County staff as well as the applicant to Washoe County for the Thompson Family Trust in terms of working with them, which it seems like back in, just after the regional plan was actually adopted, that we started meeting with the Thompson Family Trust folks for this. But it really was working together and getting the materials over time, both with Washoe County staff and the Thompson Family Trust representatives, because we appreciate the effort and time from both parties, and this is really in service of meeting our statutory requirements to look at the impacts when we're getting in to change the master plan as well as the regional plan. And this somewhat relates to the item that follows on the agenda. So aside completed, move on to the presentation. So as noted, this is both a proposal to amend the Washoe County Master Plan and an amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. We'll cover the details of each component on the following slides. The Washoe County Board of County Commissioners approved the proposed master plan amendment and regional plan amendment sponsorship at their March 19th meeting. Regional planning staff does recommend that the proposed amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan and Regional Plan both conform with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. You can see the regional location or regional form map. Continuing with the overview, the approximately 81.83 acre subject site It is composed of 2 parcels and located southeast of the intersection of Hunters Peak Road and Hunter Falls Circle. As mentioned, the Board of County Commissioners approved and sponsored the proposal at their March 19th meeting. The item that was heard by the BCC was an appeal of the Washoe County Planning Commission's denial of the proposal. Washoe County Planning staff also did recommend denial of this item at their body. The Board of County Commissioners reversed the Washoe County Planning Commission's decision as regional planning staff could infer from the meeting that they determined that the concerns raised by staff and the Washoe County Planning Commission could be addressed through subsequent processes that the site would need to proceed through in order to be developed. To move on to the conformance review portion of this, so as introduced, the proposal includes an amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan to change the land use on the northern 8.36 acres of the overall 81.83 acre subject site from rural to suburban residential. And you can see that on the existing and proposed land use map. Again, the parcel is currently designated rural and is proposed to be designated a combination of suburban residential on the northernmost 8.36 acres, and the balance of it would remain as rural. To move on to the overview for the regional plan amendment portion of this, the site is currently located in the Tier 3 regional land designation. The proposed amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan necessitates an amendment to the 2019 regional plan to change the regional land designation from Tier 3 to Tier 2. And this is because Tier 3 lands are limited to the existing densities. The Tier 2 regional land designation is proposed, again, to be located on the northern 8.36 acres, which would also follow the suburban residential land use designation. The existing density currently is set by the rural land use, as shown on the previous slide. And Tier 2 does allow for up to 30 dwelling units per acre. However, materials submitted by Washoe County indicate that the overall proposal includes a zoning map amendment to allow for parcels as small as 1 acre. And this is showing the existing and proposed regional land designations, same as the proposed land use amendment and acreages. Again, shifting from Tier 3 to Tier 2 for that portion of the subject site. Move on to the overall policy considerations for this proposal. The primary policies that set the review criteria are Policy RC9, which sets the conformance review criteria or factors. For the regional plan amendment side, Policy RF5, regional land designation amendments, and the overarching Policy RC10, regional plan amendment findings, set that criteria. Policy RF5, the criteria for inclusion into Tier 2 land is shown on the right-hand side of the screen. And the criteria the criteria analysis is embedded in the staff report and the analysis provided for Policy RC10. We'll be going over all of this information on the following slides. So in regards to the review criteria for a conformance review, as noted, Policy RC9 identifies the 5 factors that the RPC must consider when evaluating conformance. In regard to population growth, the amendment would potentially allow for a minor number of additional residential parcels and therefore a slight increase in housing units, approximately 6 to 7 units. In regard to regional form, the subject site is located in Tier 3 of the Truckee Meadows service area. However, the request proposes to change the regional land designation to Tier 2. Per the regional plan, development in Tier 2 is at suburban levels with a variety of residential and non-residential uses. The proposal is consistent with the Tier 2 regional land designation. And continuing on, the proposed land use will match the land use located on the parcels immediately north of subject site, as prefaced. The parcel to the north also contains suburban residential and rural residential land uses. This area of the region is limited in terms of remaining development potential due to several factors. The Truckee Meadows service area boundary is located just south and west of the subject site. The parcels immediately south are federally owned, and the southern portion of the parcel immediately to the west is largely constrained for slopes greater than 30%. The parcels to the east are owned by the Collin Ranch Homeowners Association, and these considerations make additional development in the area highly unlikely, including the remaining 73.47 acres of the subject site, and that is due to slopes greater than 30%. Finally, for reference, again, the proposed low-density suburban zoning would allow for 1-acre parcels as a minimum parcel size. Continuing on with public facilities and services, as part of the submittal, Washoe County provided information regarding the public facility and service domains listed in Chapter 3 of the regional plan, and that is policy PF1, table 3.2. Materials submitted by Washoe County indicate that public facilities and services are not currently located in proximity to the subject site, but are located in the vicinity. A feasibility study was submitted by the applicant to Washoe County as part of the application package. The study addresses the feasibility of installing infrastructure for wastewater, water, and stormwater drainage to serve future development in line with the proposed land use designation amendment. The study indicated that said improvements were feasible considering the increase in residential density was limited, or is limited. Additionally, the Truckee Meadows Water Authority provided a high-level engineering analysis and cost estimate of the infrastructure needed to serve the subject site. TUMWA's report identified that the appropriate infrastructure would need to be extended from where it currently exists, and the same scenario would apply to the other infrastructure types. The subject site is located immediately south of the Ridges at Hunter Creek Development, and should the Ridges development be fully constructed, the infrastructure would be nearly adjacent to the 8.36 acre land use amendment area. If the Ridges development is not fully constructed, the necessary infrastructure will be required to be installed by the developer as part of the subject site development process. Continuing with public facilities and services, so in regards to potable water and wastewater treatment, the subject site will be served by the Truckee Meadows Water Authority for potable water, the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility for wastewater treatment. All water and wastewater infrastructure, such as potable water delivery and sewer conveyance, required to serve the development is anticipated to be identified and appropriately conditioned during a future development review process. There is adequate capacity to serve the increase in allowable density. Flood stormwater drainage facilities will be constructed pursuant to Washoe County drainage standards and appropriately conditioned during the development review process. Regarding transportation, the primary set of roadway improvements is anticipated to occur on site, with additional off-site improvements required to appropriately connect the subject site to an access road, or with an access road, sorry. Finally, the proposal is not expected to generate many students. The development will be served by the Collin Ranch Elementary School, Swope Middle School, and Reno High School. In regards to natural resources, overall, the project is not, or the proposal is not anticipated to significantly impact natural resources. A review of the regional plan map 4 development constraints area identified that the subject site contains development constraints, or DCA, for slopes greater than 30%, which is present on a majority of the subject site. The 8.36 acre land use amendment area also contains DCA for slopes greater than 30%. However, the applicant to Washoe County provided an exhibit to demonstrate that future proposed residential development could avoid most of the DCA for slopes greater than 30%. According to materials submitted, the DCA for slopes greater than 30% is present on approximately 64% of the subject site. The majority of the DCA area for slope will remain, and the rural land use designation on that 73.74, or whatever it was, acre remainder parcel or parcels. Any future development or residential development of the subject site will be required to comply with the applicable Washoe County zoning code standards addressing slopes. And regarding regional coordination, it contains 2 of the primary policies that are being considered tonight, and that's policy, again, RC9 and RC10. Team RPA ensures that regional coordination is at the forefront of our work, and we work with jurisdictional staff and other relevant entities during the conformance review process. Regional planning staff provided 2 initial review memorandums for the case. The first memorandum addressed the original proposal, and the second addressed the revised materials submitted. Moving on to policy RC10, we've covered a lot of the materials that is referenced in the staff report, so this will be pared back in terms of each of the different criteria for new little bits of information. So regarding policy RC10, this does identify again the 7 criteria that the RPC and RPGB must consider when evaluating a regional plan amendment. In regard to regional capacities and growth projections, the increase in potential residential density due to the tier change is limited to the approximately 8.36 acre parcel of the overall 81.83 acre site. Finally, for reference, again, the proposed low-density suburban zoning would allow for 1 acre parcels as the minimum parcel size. And this actually should highlight the existing and planned development portion, so just pretend it's highlighting that one. There are multiple residential developments in the vicinity, and the proposal fits within the character of this area, as you can see on map 2, the neighborhood map. And then in regard to vision, goals, and policies of the regional plan, the subject site is located approximately 0.9 miles west of Tier 2 lands. It's actually a little bit less than that. I think it's around 0.7 miles. However, the intervening properties are developed at suburban levels found in Tier 3 lands. The proposal represents an appropriate extension of Tier 2 lands, especially considering the limited scope of the project, again, 8.36 acres on an overall 81.83 acre site. And then a little conclusion. So in conclusion, staff is recommending the proposal conforms with the applicable policies of the regional plan. Primary policies include, again, RC9, which sets the conformance review criteria, RF5, which sets the criteria for inclusion into Tier 2, and RC10, which sets the regional plan findings criteria. And with that, the proposed motions are listed on the screen and also on page 16 of the packet, and Team RPA and Washington County staff are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Armstrong. So I just kind of wanted some more context on what the rationale was for the County Planning Commission and planning staff for originally denying the request. I know you had identified that the County Commission basically said we can get past this with some conditionality. The conditions you walk through, is that mostly what is being addressed by the County Commission or what they intend to address, or are there other conditions that we should think about?
I'll let Washington County planning staff answer the question about what they're looking at, but we do, at regional level, we do have a different set of findings that we're looking at compared to at the local jurisdiction.
Cool, thank you.
Kat Oakley, Washoe County Planning. The recommendation from staff and then subsequent decision by the Planning Commission was largely based around 2 of the required Washoe County Master Plan and regulatory zone change findings. First of all, the availability of facilities. Our findings that are required are a bit more narrow, actually, than the regional planning findings, and they state that facilities have to be available and adequate. Because those facilities were contingent on the construction of ridges, that was a finding that staff recommended couldn't be made. And then secondly, the encroachment into the DCA 30% or steeper slopes area was something that staff recommended didn't conform with the Washoe County Master Plan. So that was kind of the basis of that recommendation and the Planning Commission decision, and then the Board of County Commissioners determined that those concerns would be sufficiently dealt with through the subsequent required processes.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions?
Sure, Commissioner Becerra, perhaps for staff that's on deck right now. Could you describe a little bit how those concerns would be addressed or mitigated in the future? it's a little too high level.
Kat Oakley, Washoe County Planning. So any future development on this parcel at the density that would be allowed through this master plan amendment, which would allow these 8 low-density suburban lots, so about an acre lot size, would have to go through a subdivision, a tentative map process, and would also have to conform with all of our regulations through that process regarding hillside development, subdivision development, utilities, all those sorts of things. So it would essentially just be our tentative map process that they would need to go through, at which point there are certain requirements about not allowing development on lands with slopes steeper than 30% and those sorts of things.
So does staff feel better or in alignment with the recent decision? Or not?
I think that both things can be true in a sense. Yes, those factors will be considered at the tentative map process. The recommendation that was made to the Planning Commission and to the Board of County Commissioner was based on the master plan findings specifically. And, you know, the master plan is a very big document, and the Board of County Commissioners made a different determination about it, which doesn't mean that those same considerations won't be addressed at a later time.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this question, one last follow-up for you or Mr. Tully, but there were public hearings. Did y'all receive any kind of feedback from the public? Any particular themes or sentiments that are worth sharing?
There was very little to no public comment on
Okay.
this item.
All right, thank you so much.
Any further questions of staff or the applicant? Okay, I will go ahead. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We have none.
Okay, I will close public comment and bring it back to the commission. Any comments? Okay, well, I will entertain, we have 2 motions, and I will be asking for a roll call vote because we need to have 2/3 in passing in favor, so I'm ready to entertain any motions. Don't all jump in at once.
Madam Chair, I'll go first. Let me turn the microphone. I will start with the conformance review. I move to find the Thompson Family Trust Amendment to the Washoe County Master Plan in conformance with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Kramer. We have a second.
Commissioner Phillips, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Sir, I have a question for the body here. Does this in any way help address our housing shortage or the affordable housing issue or anything of that sort, or do we take that into consideration? Question for the body.
I think that's a question for staff. I don't think this.
I think that's a staff question myself
Sure.
personally.
Happy to field it.
Go ahead.
And Jeremy Smith for the record. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, not appreciably, it's a very small change.
Sure.
And, I mean, it does add a few units. They're going to probably be high dollar units, so it's not going to be sort of an attainable housing component. But the regional plan really tries to support a mix of housing options. And considering the location and considering what's around it, it is compatible with what is right there. So I don't think it's a big change, but it does add 6 or 7 units. And, you know, there is a concept that, again, having this range, adding units at the top and the bottom, you know, does allow for some more mobility in the housing market.
Yeah, thank you so much. Would staff like to chime in since the baton was passed over?
Kat Oakley, Washoe County Planning, I would agree with that assessment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Kramer, a second by Commissioner Phillips can we get a roll call vote on this item?
Sure. Shelley Reed,
Aye.
Harris Armstrong,
Aye.
Francine Donchik,
Aye.
Kate Nelson,
Aye.
Carl Nieberlein, Pat Phillips,
Aye.
Carrie Rohrmeyer, and Manny Becerra.
I don't think we,
We didn't hear her mic go.
Did
Carrie
we not
Rohrmeyer.
hear from? Okay, I
Thank
did
you.
not hear them.
Manny Becerra.
sure, aye.
Okay, motion,
Wait a minute. Can-
we're not done?
We're not done.
Okay,
Marilyn Kramer.
Aye.
sorry. Can't believe I forgot you. I thought that was everybody. All right, motion passes unanimously. And let's move on to item 2 of the amendment. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Donchik, I move to adopt RPC Resolution 24-01 regarding an amendment to the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Kramer, I will second that motion.
All right, Kramer beat you to it. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, let's do another roll call vote.
Shelley Reed,
Aye.
Harris Armstrong,
Aye.
Francine Donchik,
Aye.
Kate Nelson,
Aye.
Carl Nieberlein, Pat Phillips,
Aye.
Carrie Rohrmeyer, Marilyn Kramer,
Aye.
and Manny Becerra.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And we'll move on to item B, which is a presentation. Director Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith, for the record. I'm going to start us out here. We're excited to give you an update about our progress towards the regional plan update, which is slated to be brought forward for final adoption in October of this year. In order to get to that location, though, first we've got to get through the projects we've been talking about in terms of our natural resources planning effort and public infrastructure effort. So if we could do next slide, please. So as you probably recall from previous versions of an update presentation, we did a major overhaul of the plan in 2019. We just witnessed using the tiers, right, as a mechanism to really make sure that the decisions that we're making are well vetted, and we'll take that next step to the governing board and even give them that final say on that tier change, which is it definitely is a step in the direction of having the transparency, especially around infrastructure and provisioning for services. So that was a 2019 addition, the PF standards, the initial review memo process, changing the plan to be approachable by human beings instead of robots, just trying to make the thing readable and attractive, right? And something that somebody might actually want to read as a visioning document for the region. So we did all of that work in 2019, and we've recommended that a major overhaul, therefore, is not necessary to the plan, that we just established a new paradigm. However, during 2019, we also noticed in our attempt to re-embed the regional plan into the state statute, which describes what the contents of the regional plan ought to be, we noticed that we had a few gaps, specifically around natural resources. There's a section of that NRS statute that says we must have a map describing natural resources, and then therefore being able to show areas of suitability for development that do not incur, or sort of degrade those natural resources. We had a development constraints area, set of layers and map, but we didn't really have a full breadth of information about natural resources. So we've been hard at work over the past 4.5 years putting that information together. We have a natural resources data portal now. It's out there, and we're building this document that Nate is going to take us through an update on. So that definitely was something we identified we needed to take on. Likewise, several of that statute, some of the numbered areas in there, indicate that we need to be looking closely at infrastructure provisioning and making sure that we're managing growth such that the infrastructure provisioning is being provided in lockstep with the growth that we're seeing. And often there was reference to concurrency, concurrency management programs at a given jurisdiction that would take care of it. But this body said things like, okay, that's great, but how? And so we have developed the Public Facility Standards Table, and we've actually added policies in there that give us a little more horsepower in terms of uncovering, as you just saw, how are we gonna actually achieve these provisions. But it's more than that. There's a line in there that talks about summarizing capital improvement spending. And that was something that we were not doing. Maybe we were touching on it somewhat in the annual reporting process, but not in a consistent way. And so we took on another initiative, which is our public infrastructure planning initiative, where we're working with the jurisdictions and our affected entities to really understand that CIP process, look retrospectively, and also look forward. So we're really considering these two documents that we're creating in these processes as sort of almost like reference or supplementary material to our regional plan. Any policy, anything that we're going to put up there and say, these are the findings you have to make, that kind of information is going to be ensconced in the regional plan itself. But these documents are going to help feed information into that regional plan. If we want to create new policies, it's going to be based on the information that we gather. And per discussions with our legal counsel, we are really trying to bring forward our natural resources plan. We're still calling it a plan, even though it's not really sort of planning. It's talking about information, but it's leading to policy updates. We want to include that along with the public infrastructure plan, which is a reflection of the local jurisdiction and affected entity plans. All of that bundled together in the October update as part of what we're including in that regional plan update. But we want to bring forward, prior to that October date, the documents themselves for your acceptance or for your potential acceptance at a meeting such as this. So it's going to be kind of a two-step process where we bring a draft of the natural resources document, we bring a draft of the public infrastructure document, bring it to this body, hopefully get your acceptance, get a recommendation to bring it for acceptance to the governing board level, get their buy-in, and then have those documents be then part of the package that comes forward in October for the actual full adoption of that new regional plan. So everything is really part of the whole regional planning apparatus and part of that plan update. So that's kind of the track we've been on, and I think wanted to address it a little up front because, we've been calling this the Natural Resources Plan. But when you read the document we've been putting together, it's not really a plan per se for natural resource protections. We have a few policies we've talked about: source water protection, natural resource consideration areas, tribal engagement. That stuff's going to go right into our natural resources section of our regional plan. But again, it's building on the foundation of the information that's going to be in this report. And further, given that it's part of that big apparatus, one of the things that we're going to be looking to do is every October, or every fall, basically, we bring an item, which is an annual update to the regional plan that's required by state statute. So we will, at that time, indicate any changes that we have done to these documents so that it's all very transparent. We know how we've changed the story, and things can change, right? What if we had some sort of new information comes through, we had a natural disaster, God forbid, or some change to any of the information that's being presented? We want to document that as part of that annual update process. But we also want to be able to react quickly so that we're not using out-of-date information throughout the period in between that. So that's kind of the approach we're trying to take, and I wanted to kind of give that heads up, kind of reiterate. But now I'll turn it over to the stars of the show, Nate and Chris, to take us through each of those components. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Nate Kusha for the record. So now you can see plan is not here anymore because we're trying to kind of get away from plan nomenclature, but this is our natural resource informational document, right, that's leading into this plan. So just to reground you in what is this thing, right? The goals of this plan are really to better meet those NRS requirements that Jeremy mentioned, that we have, policies, maps, and other documents relating to the conservation of air, land, water, a variety of other natural resources, as well as that map, which we'll get into a little bit later. But also really to bring together as much data and information as we can into one centralized location for everybody to use, whether it's us at the agency, you guys in your decision-making, or any of the local jurisdictions, planners, and the electeds and commissioners there as well. And then finally, to really identify a subset of that data and information that will really enhance our policies in the regional plan that Jeremy mentioned again. So what have we been doing? So as you all hopefully know, our natural resources data portal is up and running. So we have, I somewhere on the order of 600 different data sets in there that you can go onto our website, find the portal page, and you can search anything you're interested in as far as natural resources. Water you see here is searched, and you can look at everything we have that is related to water. You can also, limit it by the categories or our topic areas, et cetera. So that's a really cool thing. In addition to being the backbone of our portal, again, the data gathered during this is going to be analyzed to inform our policy discussions for the update. As you guys know, some of that's already been done. We've had some workshops with you guys yourself on some of our policies, which again, we'll talk about later. But additionally, the portal has also already been useful as it served in the preservation of the Truckee River Information Gateway data, which is kind of an effort we were approached by WRWC to help preserve the data from the Truckee River Information Gateway effort. And through the collaboration with our partners at the Stormwater Committee, we're able to migrate all of that data into our natural resources data portal. So it's, this portal is also going to be kind of a clearinghouse for all of the natural resource data in the region. So moving on, beyond all of our data work, which we've done, we are writing this thing. So we've written, nearly all of the topic narratives are written, and they are up on a portal for review that hopefully you all have access to. I've been sending updates. We have some of your comments. I know Harris has been in there and commented on some of those. So thank you if you have. If you haven't, go ahead and comment on those, give your input. We've also been writing our introduction and conclusion chapters. It's just kind of, all the intro material. Our conclusion is really about the sort of policy implications. We've been working on our document layout and our graphics that Shawnee Sousa has been working on. As you can see here, this is kind of our draft cover for the document. I'll take you a little bit through what this thing's going to look like. So this is kind of our table of contents. As I mentioned, we have that introduction chapter. Who is Team RPA? What do we do? Why are we doing this natural resource effort, et cetera? And then we have our 6 category chapters, which are the different, each of the different topics fit into one of those categories. And then finally, our conclusion chapter, which is really, yet again, about those kind of policy implications, as well as sort of how we're maintaining this document and data. So with that, moving into those policy implications. So as hopefully most of you already know, we have kind of our 4 targeted policies we think will come out of this natural resource planning effort that we're trying to get into our regional plan. 1 on source water protection, 1 on regional trails, 1 on tribal coordination, and our NRCA, or natural resource consideration areas. So firstly, our source water protection and regional trails. We've done workshops with you guys on both of these, so hope you know about these, but just real quick, we are really targeting the jurisdiction master plans to really recognize the relevant plans. So we've done a lot of background work on source water protection and regional trails with our various partners. There's the source water protection plan that, I can't remember the full name, it's long, but WashingtonCountyCleanWater.org, you can go there, you can see the plan. And so we've done a lot of background work there. There's also the Truckee Meadows Trails Group and the Truckee Meadows Trails Report as well. So there's plans out there that really hammer out these issues a lot. We're asking the jurisdiction master plans hopefully to, or seeking to ask them rather, if this gets approved, to really recognize those plans and utilize those plans, and then also to reach out and request comment for any developments that come through, to request comment from the relevant agencies. So source water protection, it may be TOMWA. For trails, to reach out to that regional trails group and just to get their comment on, hey, what does this look like? What do we need to be considering when we're developing in these areas around either trails or critical source water protection areas? So moving on to tribal coordination. Through our past projects and discussions, we've really identified the need to improve our coordination with the tribal governments at a regional level and to really consider that tribal perspective in the development review process. So we will yet again be seeking to really get the tribal input on projects that may be in an area close to them. We're trying to set up a system, the tribe of sort of criteria for what that looks like, right? So whether it may be something like a buffer around tribal lands, right, or a possible area of dense cultural landscape, and we're trying to suss out where those areas may be. One thing we've noted is that we really need to get a portal up that has all of our initial review memos on it, so everyone has access to every initial review memo we've done. And then whatever we come up with for this sort of parameter of when to really request that comment from the tribe, then we will send the IRMs or the initial review memo directly to the tribe. So it's kind of a two-track mechanism where they can check out any of the IRMs, but when we think it's of cultural significance or specific, want to receive specific comment from the tribe, we'll send it to them directly as well. So yet again, we're working with the tribes and setting up meetings with them as well as the State Historic Preservation Office to really kind of set what those parameters should be and where these areas are. So finally, as Jeremy mentioned, in NRS, we are required to have a map that really shows the area best suitable for development. So in doing so, we're kind of taking the flip side of that and saying, well, let's find the areas that are not suitable, in essence, showing where it is. So we do have our development constraint area map, as mentioned. That's kind of a hardline thing. And so we're looking to add this natural resource considerations areas map as well. And really the two of these together should satisfy that state law requirement. And we're going to be using utilize a spatial check for each of these data layers for every case, include a report of spatial interactions. We'll kind of get into what that looks like in just a couple slides here. And we'll also make this tool available for local planners to utilize in their local casework. So currently, these are the layers we have targeted to add into these natural resource consideration areas. It's things like slopes of 15 to 30%, our critical source water protection areas, areas of potential renewable energy, things of that nature. You can see the full list here. So what we're really looking at with this, just to kind of get a visual, is we will put up all these layers. We'll host, as this is going into our policy, so we'll host all of the layers and we'll say, okay, we have a case coming to us, right, a subject site. We'll put it into the map and say, what are you interacting with when it comes to our natural resource consideration areas? So right here is kind of a mock-up of what that's going to look like. We have two examples. So for this is just a draft map of it. We're only looking at 3 layers right now, and that's critical source water protection areas, endangered and threatened species, and a fire history layer, so kind of getting at that sort of WUI concern, right? And so on our example 1 on the left here, we see our subject site in green, and you can see that there's a little bit of that brownish color. That's our fire history, so there was a fire there, right? And we have endangered and threatened species. Contrast that with on the right, it's in the critical source water protection area of the purple, and we also have fire history. So this is kind of what it'll look like visually, but then what will a report out look like? So we will run our tool, we'll put the parcel number in there, and it'll give us all the interactions of our NRCA layers. So what you see here on example 1 is that first feature class, that's our first layer, that's critical source water protection. Percent cover is 0%, so it means there's none on the subject site, right? You move into that next fire history one. There's a percent cover of almost 14%, right? So 14% of our subject site, at some point in time, there was a fire there, and then you get more information about like, okay, well, this fire was of natural causes. It was in 2006, and that fire overall itself was about 105 acres. Moving down to endangered species, about 17% of our subject site has an endangered species habitat on it, and we have our common name. There's our Carson wandering skipper. That's the endangered species, and the status is endangered. So looking on the right, we have critical source water now, 43% cover, and we have a fire history as well, about 14% a cover on our site. However, there is no endangered or threatened species habitat. So this is kind of a report out, and we'll attach these to each of our initial review memos. So there'll be a whole report out of our natural resource or NRCA natural resource consideration layers or NRCA, and it'll be attachment to our IRM. So it's just more information for everybody to look at to say, here's the things we need to be considering through our development review process. That's kind of a mouthful. So if anybody has questions on any of that, I'll go ahead and take those. Otherwise, we'll keep trucking. Lovely. All right, so we've done a lot of engagement through this effort, obviously. We've had a number of meetings regarding the document. We have our committees that were made. We have had about 10 of those meetings, plus ongoing coordination through emails and whatnot of folks on those committees reviewing documentation and providing feedback, et cetera. We've had about 5 of our regional plan update working group meetings that specifically talked about the natural resource plan or policy implications therein. We've done about 10 different events and had various independent engagement opportunities, such as our sort of self-guided field trips we've talked about. And we've had about 15 RPC or RPGB meetings where we've talked about our natural resources, including our 2 workshops that we did with you guys. And we've had about 3 meetings with the tribes talking about that tribal coordination. So next steps, we are nearly there with a full draft document of this thing. And our target is upcoming Monday, so April 29th. We're looking for Monday to get this out for review. So hopefully Monday you guys maybe will see an email saying, hey, this is up and you have access. Go check it out. Give us your feedback and comments. We're working on drafting regional plan policy language from the implications gathered from all this information and data. And we'll be presenting that to our update working group on May 16th, as well as then releasing for public review and obviously bringing it here for your guys' input, and then finally to our governing board for their input on any policy language as well. And then we're shooting for your next meeting in May to hopefully accept the sort of final draft of the natural resources document, and they're hopefully getting a recommendation to bring to the governing board for their acceptance at their June meeting. So that's where we're at with natural resources. I'm gonna step aside now and let Chris talk about public infrastructure.
Thanks, Nate. Chris Tolley again, Team RPA, and I'll walk us through the public infrastructure portion of this. And that wanted to highlight it, even though I think Director Smith did that. But this public infrastructure plan was a decision to do this, not just by regional planning staff, but it also included staff of the jurisdictions and then the Regional Planning Commission and the Regional Planning Governing Board. It's kind of regrounding in the collective decision. Same, I suppose, for natural resources. A refresher on the goals. We'll step into these a little bit more as we go through the presentation, but the first goal was to create the actual document. And then the second goal was to gather the information, the data, the raw data out there, and turn that into usable information. And then goal 3 was to design and implement policy and process improvements to the regional plan. And just as another grounding portion, the policy PF1 list of facility and service standards, such as the case we heard earlier. What we at regional planning look at is water, and that is conveyance and treatment facilities, wastewater collection and treatment facilities, stormwater flood control, and that is really through the Western Regional Water Commission's Regional Water Management Plan. Transportation, roads, multimodal and regional road facilities, and then finally schools. So those are what we consider the 5 domains that are addressed by the public infrastructure document. So goal 1, what are we doing in regards to goal 1? The plan is for us to release a draft of this document in the June timeframe that would be preceded by a version for review at the jurisdictions and entity staff, so they could tell us what we missed or what or maybe give us a thumbs up as well. But the document is going to be addressing the 5 domains with short and long-term policy implications. And that is really, it's not going to be a document that's heavy on words and narratives like you might see. Certainly the old regional plan was heavy on words, and we pared that back for the new regional plan. But this document is really intended to provide the salient points from the regional planning perspective and then point to the documents or the entities to actually get the detailed infrastructure or other information. So currently we've got the outlines created and are working on the written portion of it. And then as I mentioned, there'll be a staff review portion and then a publicly reviewable draft version. Goal 2, which was bringing together all the data from the jurisdictions and entities and turning it into usable information. So what we're doing currently is gathering the up-to-date public infrastructure data. And the map you can see on the right is currently in the regional plan. Then that shows the infrastructure, a composite, I suppose, of infrastructure and the proximity. So you can see if there's high development priority would be located near trunk line infrastructure for sewer, water, et cetera. So that information is from before 2019, probably the 2013 to 2017 timeframe, roughly. So this process that we're going through will give us up-to-date data, really on an annual or sooner timeframe, that will help us in a multitude of ways. We're also gathering the capital improvement plan data and retrospectives, and we'll dive into what those mean a little bit more on the following slides. But but those are currently being submitted to us as part of the Truckee Meadows annual report process. We are also currently creating with our consultant, and that is Hansford Economic Consulting, currently creating the CIP spending summary. So that is taking the documents that the jurisdictions and entities create regarding infrastructure that they're planning to do over the next year and then the following 5 years, and turning those into a regional understanding, both of each individual domain and then collectively of what we're spending. So that is going to be the regional look at spending. We're currently creating a template, or actually we're currently creating the document, which will be a template for staff to utilize on an annual basis. And then talking about the TMAR, so the Truckee Meadows annual report is required by state law. What is also required in state law is that the RPC summarize the spending from the jurisdictions and entities, and that CIP spending. So we're really taking those two components and at one point in time throughout the year, asking for that information to minimize the burden on local jurisdiction staff. So we're asking for a narrative report, and that is true to the regional annual report that goes out on at the first of the year, essentially. And then the additional parts that we're asking for is the CIP tracker retrospective, and that is a unique document that we ask for the jurisdictions to fill out and send to us. We're also asking for their next fiscal year CIP, which are typically produced in the May to June timeframe. And then that's the center, so we're now talking about the orange, started with blue, now orange. But that center, the current CIP theoretically received last year as part of last year's submittal. So we'll have coverage for in the neighborhood of about 7 years, looking back and then forward in terms of what people spent, what they're planning to spend on any given, for the current year, and then what the outlook is for the next 5 years. And then finally, the map that we saw on the previous slide, the green portion is indicative of the data that the public infrastructure data, the lines, the treatment plant, any information. So we have an annual cut of that information to update our maps and our other process for updates to the other processes as well. So use the CIP data. So these are two maps that we've shown you before, and this is indicative of what we have done and can do with the data. And these maps show a count of the number of projects in two different ways. The map on the left shows the count of TUMWA projects, and these are just, I guess, related to growth, I believe is what we did. But the count of the projects based off of their fee areas, and then we also looked at those according to the Truckee Meadows or the regional land designation, so you can see where things are based off of those two data points. So that'll give us really a way to summarize for the information that we receive, as long as there is some geospatial information that comes along with it, but to spatialize it and to be able to look at it. And then we're also representing two types of the CIP data. And one is growth, and that is capacity projects, where we're either installing new infrastructure or expanding capacity to serve new areas, generally speaking. And then community investment, and that would include maintenance and rehab projects. And that really it's almost the full picture of spending. In terms of TUMWA, when we were originally working with them, we had just identified growth that we would be representing. But then after speaking with multiple entities, we realized that we really needed to show growth and capacity and community investment projects to see the entire picture. And here's another representation of the information that we received. So this is based off of a calendar year, which we have since shifted to the fiscal year, as most entities and jurisdictions utilize that, save for the airport, I think it operates off the federal fiscal year, and same for RTC in some way, shape, or form. But so this is showing spending for each of the 5 domains for calendar year 2022 based off of the information that was submitted to us. So this is another word of saying draft, pretty drafty. But we can see that I believe schools takes the top spot in terms of the overall spending, followed by transportation, and then water, wastewater, and finally stormwater flood. And the map on the right you've also seen before, but that is indicative of one of the domains where school is what they submitted to us, what the spending is representing, really looking from this calendar year 2022 and moving forward. But we know that this information is updated currently based off of the FMP. Well, I've forgotten what that name is.
Facilities modernization.
Yeah, there we go. The modernization program. Anyways,
So many acronyms.
so, here's another representation looking a little deeper into the water domain. And then again, this is based off of that 2022 data that was submitted to us. This is looking at what was expended, the graph on the left, what was spent by TUMWA and by SVGID for this particular time frame. And we went through, what we asked for last year did include the different types, growth or community investment. So we, regional planning staff, went through and quickly determined what we thought was growth versus community investment. So then this is again fairly draft and a draft representation of their data. And we've since had conversations with TUMWA staff to really hone in on what is growth versus community investment. But what was submitted to us shows about 62 or 63, yeah, about 62 million in total spending. And what we identified was about 41 million for growth and approximately 21 million for community investment. And then looking at the different entities, the chart on the left shows TUMWA spending at the lion's share of that, 62 million, and then SVGID spending in the neighborhood of $17,000. But when you think about the number of people that they serve, those numbers might be somewhat normalized to maybe something fairly close to the household expenditure, just a guesstimate. And then goal 3, design and implement policy improvements to the 2019 regional plan. As we've mentioned before, we'll be updating policy PF3 to require the ongoing implementation of the public infrastructure document. And that would be an annual refresh of the spending summaries, information that we just saw in the previous slides, and the periodic updates to the text, the actual PI document. And then short and long-term policy implications. These will essentially be TMRPA's work plan items. What we left with from the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan was the NR plan and the public infrastructure plan as our work plan items. And these, along with stuff that's generated from the natural resources plan, will become the new set of things that we'll be working on in terms of the next update cycle. And the utilization of the data for policy PF1, and that was both the pipe data, and then also the CIP data. And the data will be available to inform our existing processes, not replace the great work done at the jurisdictions. This is something that we've tried to emphasize, that we are bringing all this information together and representing the great work that is taking place at the jurisdictions and entities. And a list of them that we're working with, I'm sure there are a few that we could add on to, and like Great Basin Water, hopefully we'll strengthen our relationship with them, but I won't go through and read everybody, but this is a list of folks that we have been certainly working with heavily over the last several years. And then engagement, number of meetings we've had regarding the PIP, quite a few in terms of trying to get everybody together, but it's approximately 42, and this dates back to 2021 when we, as staff, kind of kicked off discussions with the jurisdictions and entities and in terms of what we envisioned we would be asking for over time. And then for a regional plan update working group, specifically regarding the PI document, and then community engagement in the neighborhood of 8, and that includes presentations to groups such as the NVAPA, a couple presentations to them, as well as other entities or groups, and then approximately 6 presentations to the RPC and RPGB. So the PI, it's still taking a little bit to get used to. The PI moving forward, continue to work with a consultant to create the spending summaries, and we just had a presentation with our regional plan update working group where we, again, fairly draft, but looked at some more detailed spending that is based off of the CIPs, and that was pretty cool, but also some more work to do in that realm and also working with the jurisdictions and entities specifically to look at those. And that would be also the composite and future spending, and then again the complete draft available for review in June, and then similar to the natural resources plan, but delayed by a meeting, or in the future by a meeting. We're looking at acceptance by the RPC and the July timeframe, and then by the RPGB and the August timeframe.
Hi, Jeremy Smith for the record. I'm going to take over these slides, if you don't mind, Chris, from our consultant, but you could be the clicker for me, if you would be so kind. I'm realizing as I sit here thinking about this that I have a better set of slides that has pictures in it. This is sort of the truncated version, but I'm going to go through it, and then after this, we'll send out a presentation that you can see some of the pictures, or you can even go to these websites. But basically, our consultant went out with our help to some degree and tried to find case studies of where this kind of work is actually happening elsewhere. And the feedback that we got then from Catherine was, it's not happening that often. Folks aren't necessarily doing this work, although the American Planning Association indicates that it's an important goal that we should be doing. And we all seem to agree that it's important that we're doing this synthesis, bringing all of this together and helping, direct, as Chris mentioned, we're doing a high-level synthesis of this information. The nitty-gritty is still going to live at the jurisdiction or at the entity, but we'll be able to say, okay, and this is who does what. But sort of more information on why this is a good idea, and Catherine even mentioned maybe one day folks will be seeking out the Truckee Meadows to see how to put this sort of a thing together. So next one, please. So closest to home is the One San Francisco, or One SF initiative over there. Really trying to look at planning and financing projects that strengthen the integrity and resilience of San Francisco. Created by the Office of Resilience and Capital Planning for the City and County of San Francisco, and it's trying to coordinate interagency capital initiatives, similar to what we're trying to do. I think more of a directive at 1SF than what we're taking on. We're doing more of a summary of what folks are doing and how it works together, but fostering the dialogue. Next, please. It's a 10-year look. Ours is going to be focused on, as Chris mentioned, kind of the retrospective of the last fiscal year of spending and then looking forward into the CIPs that are being produced. But, what makes it good is these clear summaries of capital spending needs. Their domains are a little different than ours, but there's some crossover with transportation, education. They include public safety, technology, public places, recreation and parks, and some other stuff. We can go on to the next one, I think, from there. So that's the 1SF example, and that's an easy internet search to see. And really heavily, all three of these we're going to show you, which does not reflected in these slides again, they're very graphic. And as Chris mentioned, the narratives exist. The text is already out there, but what isn't out there, especially in our region, is this storytelling with nice graphs, some interactive charts that we can have on the website to help build the interest, and then you can go dig deep. So looking at another example of where this kind of work is happening is in DC. This is the MWCOG, the MWCOG rather, and bringing leaders together to develop solutions for the region's major challenges, creating an infrastructure report, and there again are domains. In their case, transportation and water, that's crossover with us. They also look at energy, public buildings, and public safety and communications. So some crossover, but not exactly the same. Next, please. 15-year outlook on this one, kind of focusing on funding, what makes it good. Again, graphics depicting the statistics, giving the audience a solid understanding, making it pretty easy to understand, and looking at preservation. That's what we're calling community investment, or rehab. That also talks about system reliability. So their 1 and 2 is our community investment category, and then their number 3, projects to serve new growth, is our capacity for growth category. So we have a similar outlook, even though we didn't start here, but it just makes logical sense. Next one, please. And so then for the third example, we had to go across the globe to Queensland, Australia, and get a little nitty-gritty there. Again, prioritizing regional infrastructure. Queensland has several, it's a state in Australia, it has several regions, and the laws there require that each region submit a report about how they're going to work together to do these infrastructure projects, and then the Queensland folks put it all together. So in this case, they're looking at, again, transportation, education, health, energy, arts, recreation, public safety. I mean, there's maybe a bigger outlook here, but we're really trying to follow that NRS contents of the regional plan. We have indicated the 5 domains because that's what our state law says that regional planning should be involved in, and that's why we're limiting to 5. But if we do a good job, you never know, maybe in the future we can help synthesize some other components of spending here in the region. This one is really cool. If you're going to check out one of these examples, I recommend you check out the Queensland State Infrastructure Strategy. And again, I'll send those links so you can go there. But really easy dashboarding where you can click on the region on a map, and they also have sort of bins for project costs and project types. So really summary kind of effort. If you think about the pie chart that Chris showed, you could imagine on a dashboard that we have, maybe you click on the water piece of the pie and then it pops up, here's all the projects, right? Or here's bins of project spending and, divided by community investment and capacity for growth. So it's kind of the approach, really going to be a graphic sort of dashboard. If you've used our Truckee Meadows annual report dashboard that Shawnee has propped up, it's going to be using that similar kind of a technology. And for our PI plan, we're going to have highlights in the annual report website, but then a dedicated public infrastructure page as well, where you have an extended, more robust dashboard for really digging in. That's kind of the idea. What makes this one good? So we had 1SF 10-year, DC 15-year, Queensland's looking at 20 years. We're looking at, 6 to 7 years. But again, this is our first attempt, and these are living things that we can continue to hone and make better. Okay, I think with that, we're good. So this was great. I like the way Catherine put this. So we'll just read through these bullets, these kind of key takeaways. Is that using this PIP plan to convey facts and message the importance of investment in public infrastructure. It's going to be a great way to synthesize all the good work that's being done in the region. Want to keep the information high level, right? Again, I'm mentioning we don't need to rewrite everything. It's already out there, but really focus on putting it together, making it digestible. And then the third bullet is key, really fostering regional dialogue. We're not doing this just to have busy work, to go out there and track this stuff, and that's important, but it then can become the context through which we can have a discussion about the decisions we're making collectively as a region, because we're going to start to understand where we're putting stuff and what is it doing for us. Obviously, providing a dashboard, we talked about that. And then it's a collaboration component. We can help get the word out. One of the things that we learned along the way, the Truckee Meadows the Flood Authority, the Truckee River Flood Management Authority, rather, was so excited to just have their logo on there and get the word out, because sometimes folks go under the radar, and if you're looking for support, you need avenues to get the word out. So again, fostering that collaboration and dialogue is really what this is about, and understanding. Okay, great. I'll just keep going. This is our mad dash to October here.
You're on a roll.
I'm on a roll. We're somewhere here. We're on April in that first dot. And we kind of mentioned that we're looking to bring on Monday a draft of the NR document out there on the web. In fact, we're building a regional plan update webpage, which we did a big deal back in 2019 because it was such a massive effort to overhaul. We're still, quite a few months out, so we're putting that page out there. It's going to have some information about this update schedule, what we're trying to achieve, and then actual version drafts of all of these documents. So we're going to start with the NR document on Monday, and it's going to be version 1. And then we're going to take feedback, and maybe we'll have feedback in a week, and we'll do a couple of edits, and we'll put out version 2. And we'll have that all available. Then we'll have the public infrastructure document. It'll be there. And again, kind of version controlled, so you can see how the changes have manifest. And then finally, we'll have a redlined version of the regional plan itself that will show up on that page too, so we can start to go look at what exactly are we changing in the regional plan, how are we adding these policies in, what does it look like, might have a version or 2 of that, so that everyone, it's very transparent, we can see how we're marching towards that October date. In advance of the October date, though, that's the Regional Planning Governing Board meeting, we are required by state law, before adopting the 5-year update of a regional plan, to hold 3 meetings of the RPC. So if you look at your schedule online, you'll see that in September, we have 3 RPC meetings. I'm sorry, but I think you'll get the voucher for all of them. But we have to actually physically hold those meetings in each of the 3 jurisdictions. They'll be basically the same. One of them will be a regular RPC meeting, but 2 of them will just be about the update. We'll do one in the Sparks chambers. We're shooting for the SVGID to do the Washoe County physical location, and we're going to try and get the City of Reno chambers for the Reno one. So might not be here at all that month. But that way, we'll hit all of the jurisdictions and follow that process. And upon the 3rd meeting, that would be the point at which, ideally, this body will vote to recommend adoption of the plan update to the governing board, which will bring on, I believe it's October 10th, is the governing board meeting. So that's the plan. I'm happy to hear any feedback or questions or thoughts or comments you guys have about all this information. Doesn't have to be tonight. You can email us or call us anytime, but happy to hear right now if you have any questions for us.
Thank you.
Next one.
So, is that it?
That's it, yep,
Okay,
and
I
we're
didn't know
done.
if the Nate and Chris
And
show.
we are done. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. And so when is our last time that we can actually go in and review and comment? It's not Monday.
No, Monday is the start of your review and comment. Yeah, you'll have,
Okay.
I would say that until we publish the actual packet for the adoption in advance of the first September meeting, let us know, let us know the feedback, and, because we want to bring, obviously, the very final documents at least that week or so in advance or more of that first meeting in September that we have. I think we're slated for the Washoe County jurisdiction, I'm not sure. But that, you can continue to give us feedback until then.
Oh, good. All right. Any commissioners have questions for staff? No questions? And I think we have we're taking a vote on this for, just a motion to accept. Anybody like to make a motion?
This is Commissioner Doncic. I make a motion. I move to accept this report and provide the following feedback, if any.
Commissioner Kramer, I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. There's with no feedback. And any discussion?
I commend you. I think this is excellent work.
Yeah,
It
it really is.
Yeah, it's
Lot
really
of good-
fascinating. I mean,
lot
I
of good
just think
detail.
it's awesome. So thank you so much
Yes.
for putting this together. I very much look forward to engaging with your drafts and learning more about it, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of these kind of reports that get done in the country or even in other countries. So it's really remarkable, and I think it's a great way to create a work product for our region. So thanks again.
Any other discussion? Go, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next we have reports, and we'll start with director report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record again. I'll try to keep it brief. This morning, I participated in the NAOP infrastructure breakfast as a panelist, along with NV Energy, RTC, NDOT, and the airport. And we had a really neat conversation about planning for infrastructure in the region. Clearly, we're engaged, so I was able to bring some of that information to bear. We talked about the NR document being available on Monday. I just also wanted to bring up that we are working with the help of legal counsel and the 3 jurisdictions and their legal counsels on an interlocal agreement that will transfer officially the responsibility of creating the housing unit model for Washoe County. It's basically a population estimate that gets provided to the state demographer. And that will then influence, as one of the inputs to the governor's certified estimate of population, which has an impact on the distribution of consolidated tax back to the jurisdiction. So we've been asked to take that over as a neutral party, and it really aligns well with the dwelling unit and population tracking and forecasting work we already do, and it's helping us really do a better job. So we're excited about that and look forward to, in the June timeframe, hopefully see that fully ratified. We're actually going to do meetings at each jurisdiction with staff's help to bring that forward and get the interlocal agreement signed by the 3 jurisdictions and the RPGB. So I'll keep you posted. We're doing some event participation. We were at Earth Day. We had a booth. That was a hoot. It was a lot of fun. What a great crowd there. We got all kinds of neat questions and interests. That was neat. Banff, we typically do that each year. Chris was there, and so got to see the cool adventure movies and also get the word out about all of our efforts to the participants there. Next weekend, we'll be at Smart About Water, the TUMWA event, where we talk about how we serve the region with water, and we'll add our flair. And then whatever other events, we're working towards a One Region event. That's going to be our 3rd annual Bringing It All Together event in August at Rancho San Rafael in advance of getting the draft of the regional plan out. So that'll be a great place for us to kind of showcase everything we've been working on. We're excited that we finally have found a couple of people that want to work with us as interns. It's been a while, but there's a couple of geographers over at the department there, graduate students that are looking for summer internships to make a little extra money. We can really use their help to make all of this real and happen. So they're coming in 10 to 15 hours a week probably for the summer months. That'll be cool. And just as an update, we're still thinking about and talking about charter and private schools, how that ties in with our what we can do as regional planning to try to look at those impacts and mitigate them. But as we talked about last fall, we have a lot on our plate, as you can see from the dot slide and everything we've been talking about. So we're probably not going to really pick that up in earnest until after we get the update through. That's kind of the plan there. Unless I hear differently from leadership, tells me to get on it, then we will. So with that, thank you very much for your time. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Any member reports? How about legal counsel's report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jessica Prunty for the record. Nothing to report tonight. I did want to say that if any commissioners have any questions about the update process from a legal perspective, please feel free to reach out to me. Jeremy has my contact information, and I'm happy to talk to you at any point in time.
Perfect, thank you. Any requests for future agenda items? Seeing none, we have our last public comment of the night. Do we have any public comments?
We have none.
Right. I will close public comment. Any written correspondence?
We do not have any, nope.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.